Welcome to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development for this Friday, November 7th of 2025. My name is Councillor Evan Duncan. I'll be chairing today's meeting. I'm joined by Councillors Dobson and Wyatt. I'm also joined by members of the Public Service, including our Senior Committee Clerk, Ms. Cowan, our Director of Property Planning and Development, Ms. Boris, and our Manager of Urban Planning, Mr. Beach. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. And our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 41st Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Can I have a mover on the meeting minutes of our past October meeting? Councillor Wyatt moves. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Is there any other business that we need to take care of before entering into delegations? Okay, then we have 3 delegates. I'll turn it over to our committee clerk to introduce.
Okay, so first is Councillor Mays from the St. Patel Ward, who's joining us in person today with respect to reports 7 and 11.
Morning, Councillor.
Morning. I think technically I may only have registered on 11, but 604 St. Mary's Road is in my...
Tell you what, I'll give you 5 minutes to talk about whatever you'd like.
It's a... There'll be no Gordon Lightfoot references.
No, please.
Yeah, 2 items. The heritage item, my thanks to the department and to the clerks for helping craft that motion. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to pay attention to, and I don't think perhaps we have paid enough attention to heritage preservation of buildings. That would include modernist structures, so we could have a dandy debate about the merits of the former parking garage or the former police headquarters and brutalist architecture if we want to, but in the short term, I do think we need to get going in the zoning rewrite with some look at the heritage policies elsewhere. Certainly there's a conference, the folks from Halifax have done a good job at rewarding those developers who preserve heritage buildings, which I think we should take a fairly broad look at. Certainly in my ward, you know, I remember a few years ago having people say, well, everything before 1960, everything that is the mature communities, it's all, you know, it's failed housing, it's past its useful lifespan. Well, some of it is, and some of it isn't if it's pre-1960. And I think we need to be a little more sophisticated in how we look at that. So the second part of it was adaptive reuse, trying to reuse some buildings rather than simply having them torn down and taken off to Brady landfill. My thanks to the director, Ms. Boris, for talking to me about this as well. And yeah, I do think we will not meet our climate change goals if we just keep tearing down buildings. The title of my presentation in Halifax was "The Greenest Building Meets Fourplexes." So it's a trade-off, right? You want to densify, but also the traditional expression here has been how the greenest building is the one that's already standing. So how do you square that? So one perhaps grammatical point, the way the motion's drafted is the department will come and talk to the Climate Action Committee on both items. I'm not sure that has to happen. I leave that up to the civil service and to this committee to sort that out. I'm not that short of work at the Climate Action Committee that I need to keep inventing delegations to come and see my committee. So, but certainly the reuse one should. I'm not sure about the heritage one. I leave that up to you. It is, you know, we have taken some steps in the last 15 years to try and preserve some modernist architecture. I remember complaining about the delays in renovating the St. Vital Library and the always diplomatic Brad Erickson saying, well, you know, once these things have heritage designations, it's a lot slower and harder. And I said, well, that's your way of saying I'm the one who designated this thing. And he said, yes, I am really saying that, but it can slow down amendment changes to the building, but I think it's worth it even, and we do need to take a look at some of our modernist structures. The other item is number 7. I support the proposed extension of lease for the St. Boniface. Got to get them to change the name to St. Boniface St. Vital Street Links, or I think they're just going by Street Links now. Like when Dan Van Dal got elected and had to change all of his social media accounts from SB Dan to SBSTV for St. Boniface St. Vital Dan. So even though St. Boniface Street Links has that in its name, the 604 St. Mary's is actually the old St. Vital civic offices. I think I've had one complaint maybe in a couple of years So yeah, very happy to do our part in San Vital and try and keep this facility open. So I'm certainly supportive of that lease extension. Hopefully I'm under my 5-minute cutoff.
70 seconds to spare. Thank you very much. Any questions? No? Seeing none. Appreciate it. Thanks, morning, Councilor.
Thank you. And thank Ms. Tugwell as well, who's been supportive on these measures, but she's yet to speak.
Okay, next is Hillary Siemens to be heard in support of report 2. Is Hillary with us in the gallery today? No? Okay, so we'll move on to Cindy Tugwell, Executive Director of Heritage Winnipeg Corporation, to be heard with respect to report 11.
Morning, Ms. Tugwell.
Good morning, councillors. Very nice to see you all. I had to show up today to show my support for Councillor Mays and his committee. We've always said the greenest building is an existing building, but I also saw this, I hope you don't mind, as an opportunity not only to support the adaptive reuse and I guess the rezoning, the reports and the changes will be made ongoing, but to look at beyond just residential and to look at commercial and other buildings. We have been advocating that the heritage sector is slowly dying, lack of funding. I'd like to give a shout out, and I don't often, but I'd like to give a shout out to Rena Ricci, the heritage planner. We have one heritage planner in the city of Winnipeg. We're one of the most understaffed heritage in the country, and the lowest funding for heritage organizations in the country. We weren't even able to go to the Halifax conference for the National Trust for Canada due to lack of funding. So, but yeah, we are an amazing, innovative city. We have amazing public and private sector, amazing developers that commit to heritage rehabilitation that we work with. We get to know the community. We run the Millennium Center, so we are not only a business owner, but we're a building owner. We have a movie going on there right now. We make a concerted effort to say, for instance, with the Exchange, to advocate with the arts and cultural community to maybe look at creating another core area initiative where there's tripartite funding. So the city, all this support doesn't have to just come from the city, and that historically is really what brought the Exchange District back to life in the early 80s. So we have lots of innovative ideas. I have a meeting with CentraVenture to talk about lighting for Main Street, possibly a grant program to bring the Main Street buildings, which if you look from Lombard going north to William are all heritage buildings. If we can light up, or at least start as a pilot project and light up Main Street and start giving confidence back to these building owners that they don't have to fix vandalized buildings or there's not break-ins, that will promote people coming back downtown, because occupied buildings, well-maintained buildings keep businesses alive because people come to those businesses. If we start losing small businesses and restaurants at an alarming rate in the Exchange, there'll be less and less for people to come to, even if you live in the Exchange. And I believe everything is a balance. It can't be everyone living here or just all businesses or nonprofits. What's wonderful about the Exchange is it was built when the cars were not a thought in the planning process. So it is one of the most one of the biggest gems in Canada, as a 20-block east and west walkable historic neighborhood from turn of the 20th century. I just want to reinforce today, because I always want it to be a positive conversation, that we as Winnipeggers and Manitobans really don't understand the breadth of what a huge asset we have with the Exchange District and some of our iconic landmark buildings, but we're not taking care of them. And we're not putting the money into it. And Heritage Winnipeg has been committed for almost 50 years now, and myself over 3 decades, to work with community groups. And that goes as far as the theaters and the museums, and not just the business owners and building owners. So we truly are a community member. And that goes for Armstrong's Point, Crescentwood, all the other historic districts we work with to try and mitigate the damage to some of these beautiful historic neighborhoods. So I'm here today just to say we work with the city well. Rena Ricci has been a huge asset to Heritage Winnipeg. We have a very collaborative relationship, but we'd like to be part of the conversation from this to look at innovative ideas that we feel we have to work with the city and partner with the city, because we feel it's not us against them. It's we're united and we want a great city and we love Winnipeg. Thank you.
Questions all, Ms. Tugwell? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time. Appreciate it as always.
For delegations.
Thank you. That will conclude our delegations as our clerk had mentioned. We will now move into our reports, starting with item number 1 on the reports, the monthly reporting on variance application made as of right residential developments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is our monthly reporting on the changes to the zoning bylaw for Schedule AC. That's the infill 2s, 3s, and 4s units. We're supposed to report back on any variances we receive. As of the 3rd week of October, there have still not been any variances received or conditional uses for those new changes in the zoning bylaw.
Thank you. Any movers on this? Moved by Councillor Wyatt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Moving on, item number 2, accelerating supportive housing on city-owned land.
Alyssa Rappaport, our manager of, or the CAO's manager of the Housing Accelerator Fund, is here to speak to this one.
Good morning, Chair and Councillors. So this report was a carryover from the September meeting. The public hearing that we had in September that was adjourned until October, I think it was. This one just carried over to the next meeting. So it had some additional programmatic directions related to the supportive housing PDO that the committee explored in October, related to funding, tax increment financing, and directing the public service to come back with additional sites in January. I'll just say that given the adjournment of the public hearing, we paid our attention towards providing the committee with the information they needed to that effect. So coming back in January with additional sites will be, I would say, impossible at this stage. We would have had to submit an application in October, November. So we can come back later in the new year with these items following the vote of the PDO1 at council this month.
Okay. Would it be helpful for this committee to send this back, and would it be possible, Madam Clerk, to send this back, the report back to the public service to have it amended so it would properly reflect their recommendation to this committee?
You could certainly amend the recommendations, but this one does proceed up to council.
Okay, I'm just thinking, is there any way for us not to have that, because council would then be considering something that should, like, we could amend it all we want. They don't have a clear understanding from what I'm gathering until council votes on the first set of proposed.
You could lay it over to next month, but this does have to go up to council. So a recommendation could be made to council with respect to further reporting on this, or you could lay the matter over. But
yeah, I think, the earliest we likely would be able to come back would be March or April for these items. We would put an application in towards the end of the year, subject to council's approval of the PDO in November. So we could change the dates to come back in like Q2 of 2026, or lay it over until Q1 or Q2 26.
Is there a way to then allow for, I suppose this committee can make any changes, amendments to the report, but essentially what I'm thinking here is that we could amend the wording to indicate April of 2026, and eliminate almost every other recommendation here. So the council would just see an SPC amendment to hear back in April of 2026.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is anybody willing to move that? So Councillor Wyatt looks like he's willing to move. Madam Clerk, do you need a moment to?
Yeah, sorry. So which recommendations would be deleting?
Turn to public service here. We need a moment here. Councillor Wyatt looked like he needed a second. Did you want a moment to step aside here?
No, I'm getting coffee and water brought to me, but thank you.
Thanks.
I would suggest that recommendation 2, that's subject to the adoption of the supportive housing PDO1, the public service report back by April 2026 with additional sites. And I think you could probably remove recommendation 1 and 3 because we could bring those forward at that same time. Or you could amend the dates in those to April 2026.
No, I think we'll just make it as simple as possible. Okay. Just have one date indicated and then change 4 to 2.
I said I wasn't going to talk much because of my voice. Now here I am. Went backwards. what is your definition of supportive housing? What does it mean? Just so,
Yeah, it's outlined in the report. I'll just read it for you. Supportive housing is a type of affordable housing that helps people at certain life stages or with challenges like health issues, disabilities, or other barriers to housing, and helps people live more stable, independent, and respectful lives.
so it could also be transitional housing as well. In a sense, it could be also like people coming out of rehab, for example. It could be also that as well, I'm assuming.
So transitional housing is very time limited. So it is intended for people to only live there between 3 months and 3 years.
Right.
Supportive housing has no time limit. So just like any regular apartment, someone could choose to move after 1 year or 20 years. With supportive housing, that's still the case. So people could be there because they need supportive housing supports only for a period of their life, but it also could be someone who needs supports for the rest of their life. So if you think about someone who maybe suffered a stroke, who needs supportive housing for the first time, whereas previously they were living independently, they might be there for the rest of their life. If someone is, had another sort of incident at the hospital, or if you mentioned rehab, maybe they need supports for a period of time, but then eventually could live more independently, and they may only stay there 1, 5, 8, 10 years. It's unclear. But it's intended for people to be able to stay as long as they need.
Okay, so it doesn't fall in that definition. Okay, so the reason we're doing this exercise, just the genesis, is it fair to say it came from the province that they want to fund these things and they need our assistance? Is that kind of or where was the genesis of
It was
this?
the council unanimously voted to direct the public service to
What
identify.
was the genesis of that motion? Was there?
I think it was Councillor Rollins who moved it originally, and maybe seconded by the mayor, but I can't remember offhand. It was in November 2022, right after this council was elected.
So was that, so when we saw Carolyn Ryan at her meeting with, clearly they're very involved. They've kind of, we took the lead and they followed in a sense. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yeah, we approached them as the council motion directed to engage the province. As is the city, we don't, deal with or administrate social housing or supportive housing, but we have land that council directed us to explore and engage the province for a partnership. That was in the specific motion.
Okay, if I could just maybe say that, it's a matter of time now. For example, the province just is in the process of opening a detox facility right across the street or just down the way. When you have a detox facility, you need to get them into rehab, ideally, right away. Is there a way for us to look at, as well as part of this exercise, try to kill two birds with one stone? Because I think they're going to need land for these sorts of things in the future. And they tend to be a little bit more controversial just because of their nature. A lot of folks, you had that issue back in your ward, back in the day with Bruce Oak, but of course the sky didn't fall, I don't think, out there. So to look at including and broaden the definition or broaden the scope to include detox, rehab, potential sites as well, because they are, even here it was challenging, right? Because they were looking at doing a safe injection site. I'm not throwing that into the mix. I'm just saying needs all around.
Yeah, I think if council is interested in the city looking at our lands for a detox rehab facility, that I would recommend that be a separate motion.
Why can't we just amend this and be?
The land use, like this sort of the size and the actual specific zoning that's still subject to EPC and council approval was very specific to supportive housing, not to rehab, and it's actually not allowed under that zoning. So
Oh, really? Okay.
if council is interested in that being a focus, then I would suggest a separate motion to that effect.
Will you be able to send me something offline to that effect in terms of also the zoning categories?
Yes,
that are appropriate.
for sure.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you for your answer.
Thank you. We just have the motion now if council wants prepared to move.
Yeah. Very good.
And so just confirming it's deleting recommendations 1 and 3, and then in recommendation 2, changing the word January 2026 to April 2026. Okay, great, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Wyatt.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. We'll move on to item number 3, which is.
I'll move that this item be filed in light of the fact that province has moved forward on this.
That was my desire on this reading.
We got something
Public
done.
service, any comments on this?
This report back is a report back to indicate that the province intends to abandon the expropriation for city lands and wants to purchase it for $1. And so Gord Chappell, the acting manager of real estate and land development, is here if you want to go for.
So, Mr. Chappell, correct me if I'm wrong. You will have to report to council regardless on this once the province moves.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
the sale part
Okay,
to the
great.
council support.
So we will hear of this once it happens. So, Madam Clerk, if this is filed, it will not reappear until real estate brings it to our attention.
Are you talking about our lands, which are kind of on the boundary?
That's right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it won't come back. And
Sorry, the clerk's just indicating it goes up to council. Councilor Wyatt, that's okay?
Yeah.
All right, so that's the intention here. And then
Whatever lays is.
this will not appear on our agenda until real estate brings it to our attention and it appears on a later agenda.
And just changing that the report be received as information to that the matter be filed.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Moving on, item number 4, membership of the Winnipeg Building. Any movers on that? Public service
Get
recommendation.
on the record, Dobson.
Okay, I'll move this one.
Councillor Dobson moves item number 4, the recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service. Or recommendations 1, 2, 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on, item number 5 now, which is Urban Design Advisory Committee nominations. Councillor Dobson, do you have an appetite to move?
Yes, I would move this one as well.
Okay, Councillor Dobson moves recommendation of 1 in service, 1 and 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 6, proposed second extension of the Transfona West Joint Venture Agreement. I'd like to thank Councillor Wyatt, the folks at Genstar and the public service, and including Mr. Chappell, who we had a meeting there. I was completely uninformed of this, and I was quickly brought up to speed, so I appreciate that. Very Councillor doing his part in public service as well.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions at all for the public service on this?
What have we earned to date net, Gord, from this joint venture?
In the report, yeah, we have 25 million.
That's what I
our share.
Guys, let's share that. 25 million. Okay, great. That's net after all of our cash
Yeah,
calls.
so that the joint venture then produced 50 million net to
Sorry? Oh,
50 million
25
total.
and 25, right, right. And what, in terms of new taxes, permanent taxes, the new roles that are generated for the city?
Oh, you didn't calculate that?
sorry, yeah,
Go on.
258 acres. James, how many houses is that? Quite a few. So yeah, that would be a significant.
Tens of millions of dollars, it's safe to say.
Yeah, it would be a
It's
significant.
commercial and residential,
Yep.
RMF, okay? And why are we extending this? Why aren't we just offering Genstar a chance to buy us out and then help us balance this year's budget? For example? Because that's
The joint venture is not interested in purchase anymore on the basis that it'll be
too late along.
Yeah, it'd be sold out right away.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll get our final distribution in a few years.
They were interested about 2 years ago, but I guess not now. Okay.
Okay.
But I did mention that to Brody then, or the chair of finance, I should say. Okay, very good.
Okay.
I'll move the report.
Okay, the
Thank you.
extension
Good work, Gord.
as recommended by the Winnipeg Public Service.
Sorry for my
items
voice. I-
1 through 4, moved by Councillor Wyatt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
And that is carried. Thank you very much. Item number 7 is a request to enter into a consecutive short-term use agreement with St. Boniface Street Links Incorporated at 604 St. Mary's Road.
Jess Casera, our acting administrator of real estate, is here to discuss this.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we are just requesting to enter into another short-term use agreement with St. Boniface Street Links while they consider the feasibility of operating and renovating 604 St. Mary's as a 24/7 safe space. This new short-term use agreement would bring their tenancy to November 30th, 2026.
Give it to them.
We're just entering into another short-term use agreement while they determine if the space works for them or not.
So this, to Councillor Wyatt's point of just giving it to them, they're not interested in that. They just don't know at this point.
They're just not sure yet. Yeah, the building needs quite a few capital improvements, so they're just figuring out their business plan right now.
Any
Tell
other-
them they have a committee member who's amenable, and that doesn't happen often, so. Anyway.
Any other information on this?
Sure, maybe. That's
Sorry, what was the question?
Any other information on this? It's pretty straightforward.
No, yeah.
Okay, mover.
Counselor
Counselor Dobson moves public service recommendation 1, 2, 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Also a request to enter into is item number 8, consecutive short-term use agreement for the St. Boniface Museum Board at 219 Provencher.
So again, we are just requesting to enter into another short-term use agreement with the St. Boniface Museum Board for the lease space in 219 Provencher while the museum on Taché is currently being renovated. The renovations are just to be expected to be completed in summer 2026. So we're just asking for another extension for their short-term use agreement while they store items in 219 Provencher.
And following this agreement, there's no indication that they're going to stay.
No, there's no intent for them to stay.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Wyatt. Winnipeg Public Service recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Item number 9, authority for determining completeness of a development application. We have an update from the public service on this.
Yes, do you want to go, James? Or,
Yes,
go ahead.
yeah, well, we have the report written and submitted, and it will be here for December 4th Standing Policy Committee.
Great. I just offer to the committee if we would like to have a chance to discuss that with the public service. I can set something up just so everybody's understanding exactly what it is and so that we can.
That's a good
Understand.
initiative.
Okay, great.
I understand it.
So looking at the request is, sorry, we need an extension. Okay, to the December meeting then, should we put?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so Counselor Wyatt, would you be willing to move an extension to the December meeting of
Sure,
your
yeah,
ED?
that sounds good.
Okay, let's move up Counselor Wyatt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Honorary street naming of Bob and Judy
Rolling.
Rolling. Thank you very much.
No.
This is in the St. Norbert Seine River Ward. Did we receive any communications from the area councillor or anybody on this? Okay, I have no particular issue with it. Is there any comment, public service on this?
Sure, there's no action required. As a street hasn't been identified, the public service will report back to Riel. Bob and Judy Rowley are personal friends of mine and have done so much work in the St. Norbert area to facilitate the farmers market, along with many other
Right.
community
Yes, I remember this now.
efforts.
Good. Okay.
Rowley,
So this will come back to the committee at,
Riel.
yes, what are we, timeline, just being. Yeah, no problem. I never understood why you guys just don't set up shop here.
Yeah, just did.
Just one thing to clarify, I guess, is SBCPD has authority on regional streets.
Okay.
So in the event there was any honorary naming for Pemina or anything else, right, it would come back here, but otherwise, yeah. Since there's no street identified, it's just going back to Riel and they'll handle the process.
And will they identify a street?
Yeah, they'll have to if they're gonna do an honorary name.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mover?
Sorry,
So moved. Oh, what?
did you
Oh, sorry.
timeframe
Do we
for
have it?
report back to Rio?
It's already in progress. We've got the letter, so it's up to the committee. I mean, we can just leave it with Riel or if you want, it's
Can we say at the next committee meeting?
just a verbal update on the.
You could leave it, you could leave no time frame, or you could specify a time frame, whichever you prefer. If there's a specified time frame, it has to be back at Rio at that time. If there's no specified time frame, it can come back.
It's within the applicant's control. They sent us the letter and they need to make the payment and otherwise we'll process it. So there won't really be a delay from our end of things. So are we looking for a report back to SPCPD or just to Riel?
No, just usually we put a time frame on the report back if there is one, but you don't have to.
We could say up to 90 days.
Okay, great. Okay, so the motion would be then up to 90 days to report back to Riel Committee. Councilor Dobson, you're moving?
Yep.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Promoting adaptive use and preservation of heritage. Councilor Mays joined us here to speak to this. public service, if you may.
Sure. So Center Venture launched this yesterday. The October 29 Real Community Committee recommended to SPCPD that the Winnipeg Public Service be directed to meet the Climate Action and Resilience Committee and report back in 180 days on promoting the adaptive reuse of existing residential buildings as an alternative to demolition and disposition in the city landfill, including in mature communities within newer areas, as well as along with some cross-jurisdictional research of heritage development agreements whereby preservation of existing buildings can be encouraged through providing land use incentives. So as the motion notes, this will be done as part of our full zoning bylaw review, including that cross-jurisdictional research. And then, of course, we heard from delegation today that they would like it to be not just existing residential buildings, but also all types of land uses.
So the key thing here is that they're requesting promoting, not regulating. Right?
Well, I mean, in order to, the downtown zoning bylaw already allows a wide variety of uses today, and as part of the rapid zoning bylaw amendments within the last 2 years, we did amend as part of bucket 2 residential setbacks downtown to enable this adaptive reuse. So it's downtown is already promoted but in a regulatory sense, but outside of downtown it becomes a little more.
When I say I mean restricting, not making it so, taking away a person's ability to, if they wish to knock it down, then.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
I see.
That we're encouraging adaptive reuse where possible kind of thing, but not creating more red tape in terms of having rules like that in place. I guess that's my concern. And I think the intent here is to promote it, not to demand it, so to speak.
that is our reading of the motion as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
Regardless, it will go to the Climate Action Committee
Right.
and they will have a healthy discussion on it. Would it come back to P and D, Madam Clerk?
They came up with the idea.
That's how I would read the motion. So
Okay.
report back, like, if the intent is to ask the public service to meet with CARC at one of their climate action resilience meetings, you can certainly do that. They could meet with them offline. Either way, I think the chair mentioned coming to a meeting, but then as I understand it is written, it would be that the report that comes out of those conversations comes back to this committee, as this is the committee of jurisdiction.
And at its conclusion, it's going to be considered in the zoning rewrite.
Right. Over the next 2 years to have something available for council consideration
Right,
by
okay.
December 2027.
I'm fine with that.
So just,
I'm not, I guess I'm just confused on, they have their discussion over climate action. It comes back here for what purpose?
so that the public service would provide a report on promoting the adaptive reuse of existing.
Which we would then,
They have to go through us.
we would probably recommend it to the zoning rewrite process at that point in time. That'd be an option.
You could, yes, if you wanted the report back, you could refer the recommendations that come out of that report to the
Okay.
zoning rewrite, or
Is anybody opposed to this at this point in
I'm
time?
assuming you'll look at best practices elsewhere.
Yeah,
also.
we're not. Yeah, okay. All right, do I have a mover on that then?
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Wyatt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Item number 12, requirements for demolition permits. This comes from council, I believe it was, Counselor Wyatt.
So I'd like to move it to be referred to the administration for consideration. I don't know what kind of time frame you need.
We can share some initial ideas
Okay,
if you would like.
please, yeah.
Yeah, and
It's a pretty concrete.
Mr. Chair, we're joined by Rick Clausen, the manager for development inspections, and Rack Hayer. Maybe some of you haven't met in person. Rack is our new chief zoning officer. The motion has sort of a real cross-departmental effect, and so we'll have to mobilize all our different community services, development inspections, zoning, planning, even water and waste. So perhaps for us, Rick Clausen and D&I would be mostly specific to item number 2 in the motion. And then Rack Hayer could speak to item number 1 in the motion and item number 3 in the motion. I'm not sure how much detail you want to get into, but up to the committee.
Councillor Wyatt, do you want detail at this point in time? or would you
No, I
like
don't
to-
expect detail this time.
Okay.
It's very early.
Yeah,
I just want to refer it to the public service to have a look at it and see how we can make changes to our existing procedures to make things better.
so you're.
As well as some reporting back mechanism, because I don't think the issue is going to get better. It's going to get worse, what I'm hearing, so. We gotta get on top of it. I do have a sense that, follow the public service. Previous councils have reduced funding on enforcement. When we first rolled out the vacant and derelict building bylaw, for example, I want to remember what was his name, James Gary Sokolsky, was it? It was, right, yeah. Gary, he was here almost every meeting. We were fighting appeals. A lot of resources were earmarked at that time. And I have a sense that that's kind of dropped off. So I think we're seeing, so. We have a lot of the tools in place right now. We just have to be able to apply our bylaws.
Can we hear from the director on this?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my thought on it, at least.
Thank you. So we would find it useful. We do have a short 3 pages of speaking notes to share with you. If we could just
Sure.
share that now, just to ensure
Please.
that we're heading in the direction of your intent.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Is there anything you can give the clerk for the record for the minutes, or is it all verbal?
It's all verbal.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Maybe, so item number 1 now would be Rack Hare. Would you like to speak to the number 1 in the motion?
I'll speak to number 1 briefly. So this is regarding the permit requirements, the authority and criteria to review residential demolitions where no new construction is proposed is set out in the development procedures bylaw. Utility deposits, those are handled by the water and waste department under the sewer bylaw. 1A speaks to ending the practice of requiring a development and or building permit. Demolition permits do not currently require a development permit. That requirement was removed several years ago. Permit is only required where reconstruction is planned. Needless to say, to change the requirements for permitting, a amendment to the procedures bylaw would be necessary, and we can certainly look into what that amendment would look like and report back.
Can I just comment on that, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, this came about partly because somebody actually who, because you've been a planner a long time, I think. What area did you cover in the city? Yeah, where were you?
Lord Selkirk, West Kelowna.
Yeah, so you would definitely know this individual who does a lot of work in that area. Ran into this where he was not planning anything and he was told by the city, you have to. Yeah, he had to pull a development permit, he had to pull a building permit, he had to put the deposits down. And then he pointed out to me on the website, it's quite confusing because there's actually within a page or so of each other on the website, it says 2 different things. You don't need it, but you do need it. And I saw it as well. Now, maybe we're reading it wrong somehow. I don't know. But I think what's happening is maybe it's the procedure bylaw that's causing the problem where staff don't know exactly what level of enforcement is required or what's required in terms of the property. But his intent was to knock down and resell, not to build, but he had to make up a design of a building and pull these permits and pay these fees just to get his demolition. And I don't think he still has it yet. So anyway, that's why I raised it. I don't want to contradict you, Rack. I respect you a lot, and you got one of the better a very good planner here, Madam Director. So if we can somehow clean that up, that'd be good. So, yeah. Sorry about my voice, Rack. I'm not doing an imitation of, I don't know.
So could we clarify, so if you want to do
I don't know.
a demolition,
At least the valid.
you don't need a building permit?
There is a process to obtain a demolition permit without reconstruction permits. That does entail a variance process. That variance process was streamlined within the last couple of years. Previously, it would require a report to the community committee, a hearing. That was removed. And currently, the demo variance, where it's a demolition without intent to rebuild, is reviewed internally, administratively by the area planner. provided the planner is satisfied the criteria and the bylaw is met, they can close their process and the permit can proceed to issuance.
And they don't need a variance.
What are those?
That is the variance process.
That is very nice.
You just mentioned something. If the area planner is satisfied with what? Repeat that again.
There is criteria,
Yeah.
I understand, in the procedures bylaw.
Uh-huh.
And I believe the standard operating procedure does entail the planner connecting with the area counselor as well to advise them of the request to vary that requirement. So there is a process that the planner follows before they sign off on the request to vary the requirement for permits.
Which has the environment.
Yeah, the criteria in the development procedures bylaw, it's 46(3) ABC. So A is would not have an undue detrimental impact on the maintenance and use of adjacent properties. B would not create a visual deterrent to adjoining properties. And C would not increase the pressure to approve a new land use that is not supported by policies in Plan Winnipeg or any other secondary plan. The whole process of requiring a stronger demolition process was years ago, a lot of single-family homes were being torn down next to commercial uses and then used as surface parking. That was the original intent. And I know now with houselessness and the fires and all those issues, I think they're taking more precedent than that concern back in the day of surface parking lots. So definitely we can take this away and report back. And we would have this cross-departmental sort of task force that we would put together to.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, just from those points there in the procedures is that the planner is hesitant to approve these because how long will that lot sit vacant for? And that is a visual deterrent in the neighborhood.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, so would not long.
Well,
And William White, maybe for a while.
you would hope, right? We don't want this
Or the intent.
toothless grin look, right, in the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Yeah. However, is it better than a burnt out or derelict building?
I'm confused by the term variance. Because it's really, a variance is when we vary something on the land use. That's what we're used to in terms of a variance. This is us saying that really you don't need to have a demolition or a development or a building permit. You're varying that rule. It's kind of the wrong term to use, you know, in terms of variance tends to be on a land use word. Is there a way we could just simply, because again, it's another fee, it's another hurdle. Is there not a way to empower the administration to say, we have the ability to simply, you know, issue the demolition permit in light of the fact you're not going based on their own good sound judgment rather than have a variance and a fee and another process? I'm just thinking out loud.
You may have a point, Counselor, that the term variance could be confusing given the term variance in a land use planning context means something somewhat different. In this case, it's a variance for a requirement for a permit under procedures bylaw. Right. So that wording perhaps could be cleaned up to make it more clear specifically the process that is proposed to, the deviation that is proposed from the typical process.
Like my biggest concern is once they knock down that they have to re-landscape and they have to maintain and they have to sign off. Right? They just can't have a mud field or something like this in the neighborhood, right?
So if we could continue through these speaking points.
Sorry, and item number one, then, just so we're clear. If we send the public service away with this, the intention is to what? To find a way that somebody can just apply for a demo permit. It's a yes or no. It's not a variance.
It's not recently that somebody acquired a property the city demolished. It's $100,000 on the tax bill versus what they could have done it for a smaller amount, right? So it's better if we let the private sector do it and get the properties back out if we can. So.
Yes.
So one of our challenges with the first item one is the water blockage deposit and the sewer blockage deposit. Those are put in place so that during the demolition process, if the applicant fails to properly block off the water and sewer and hurts the city assets, then they would be required to remediate that. So that's why that's in place now. I don't know if you want to speak further about that, Brad.
That's my understanding of it.
The connections are cut, they're capped off. The deposit is there. I believe it's around 5,000 per connection. And it's there to ensure that the capping off process meets city requirements. If it leaks, it can seep underneath the roadway, create a cavern, potentially impact
So
infrastructure.
that's easy to report back on. You can report back on exactly that to explain why that would not be a good practice. Okay,
Absolutely.
we can move on then to,
And maybe like the chances of a water blockage and a sewer blockage happening both is very rare. I mean, maybe we should, just to make it step for like have one deposit, right? Like, it's, a deposit, even the 5,000 may not be enough, right? Depending on the situation. So just to simplify things, anyway, carry on.
I'm confident they can report.
Sure,
back.
absolutely. Yeah.
And in this case, a water blockage it just means that you have blocked off the water pipe, not that you've created an additional.
Do we have?
And they get the money back.
To item, part two of this?
Yeah, I can speak to item two, Councillor. Thank you, Chairman. So the councillors, Wyatt's situation of what happens to the property once it is fully demolished. We understand that there's lots of different levels of demolition, some that happen after a fire on a building, so there's partial buildings left. There's some cases there's piles of rubble left. All of those still require a full complete demolition permit, and as part of 16.3C of the building bylaw, they're required to remove all of that once it's capped at the water and sewer and other services, and bring it to a level landscape property that's similar to the surrounding area. So that currently is our requirement that we do follow up on demolition permits. You might see that some are not at that state yet, just because they're awaiting the owner to complete some of the demolition process.
Okay. Number 3, A through,
Before we get to 3, if I may suggest something here, 3 is very comprehensive. May I suggest that items 1 and 2 be referred to the administration? They can start working on that. 3 we lay over and have our own discussions between now and the next meeting. Because I haven't had a chance to talk to the administration about this yet, to be fair to them or yourself. And I just think I don't want to create a whole bunch of work, but I do want to have some sort of, I'm thinking there has to be a process of some kind, because sometimes it's at PCS, sometimes it's here, but it's all over the place. So my voice, I don't want to talk.
No, I hear it.
I don't want to.
Can we give more than until the next meeting then, just to give you some?
Yeah, we can get some information out, but I would lay over 3 for the next meeting for consideration. Part of
So do you want it to come to December or January?
fine with December. My voice, we can find that.
Public service here.
Is that?
Sure, that sounds good. I mean, item 3 would require another FTE or more because of the extensiveness of this effort. Also, monthly written reporting is challenging because of RIS requirements. So we're happy to lay that over. It's a significant workload.
Okay, so offline then, Councillor Wyatt, you'll discuss with the public service 3 in its entirety.
Meet with staff.
The clerk is looking at me as how do we break this apart then?
So this is a recommendation that goes back up to council because it was not an automatic referral. So if the intent is for the public service to report back on 1 and 2 at some point, with respect to 3, you could perhaps change the wording of 3 to indicate that the public service will provide, a verbal update at the December meeting on the following, and then out of that verbal update, there could be further direction for an actual written report, but rather than splitting up their specific recommendations.
Just to be consistent with 1 and 2, I would say just to be just for consideration at the December meeting rather than a verbal update, because hopefully we will have an update internally at that point. If the motion's there, it could be dealt with one way or the other, verbally or not, right? So it has to be dealt with anyway. So yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Verbal update and for consideration. Because basically you have 8 of whatever it is or action items, right? So
okay, so then you can discuss offline item 3 in its entirety, maybe combine slash,
And I would like you,
Refine.
if you're available, Mr.
Yeah, of
Chairman,
course.
to be
Thank
part
you,
of the
time, yeah.
discussion, so.
okay, so then we can discuss this and refine item number 3 and come back with something to direct the public service to report back on at some point in time.
Mayor's policy people would be good too, but anyway, yes.
Okay.
Would you like the direction to the public service just to say that they be directed to provide a verbal report for consideration at the December 4th meeting on the following? And then it's just the A to K?
Actually, maybe take a step further. I'll ask the public service to coordinate with myself, Mr. Duckett.
Sure.
Then.
But do you want, so just to answer the clerk's question?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Then we'll consider it at that point.
And then recommendations 1 and 2, you'd like a report back on that?
How much time?
Yeah, I would say up to 90 days.
Okay, great. Councilor Wyatt's amendable to that. So 1 and 2, 90 days report back. 3 will come back to this committee after informal discussion offline between the councillor and whomever else he would like to have in that meeting.
Right, so there'll be a verbal report on A to K at the December 4th meeting, and then if the committee wishes to direct a written report based on
Yes.
the verbal report, they can do so.
And maybe some members of council would not.
Sure.
And the report back can just come to SPC, correct, on recommendations 1 and 2? Thank you.
Okay, that's clear. And Councillor Wyatt moves. All in favor? Aye, opposed?
Sometimes.
Carried, thank you. Item number 13, I have a few questions, but I would like to hear from the public service on the report regarding closing of a part of Hugo Street North adjacent to 670 Gordon Avenue.
Gordon Chappelle, our acting manager of real estate and land development.
Public service didn't support the closing. The closing essentially is the area of the sidewalk patio of Coliseo.
Yes.
Public Works didn't support on the basis that there was a conventional width of the right of way and we would have sort of a zigzag shape. That if there's ever future work, if they needed, they wouldn't have that. We would potentially need to expropriate if it is purchased by the adjacent restaurant. There's also a water main that's essentially directly on the edge of the patio, and Waterway said if the property were sold, it required an easement of at least 3 meters, if not the entire patio, meaning that nothing could be built over top. The committee just approved a sale without any of their standard road closing conditions. We have some alternate recommendations should the committee decide to side with community committee. Public service still isn't in support, but we do have alternate recommendations for this committee to consider, which would make the eventual sale subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix A. So ideally, or not ideally, sorry, the restaurants to have, if they were to close this, they would just occupy and own where their patio is.
Right. And is the ownership group at Coliseo there, are they aware of the?
They understand the implication that an easement would be required and no building would be permitted over top of the patio. So, and as an alternate solution, in the event they did want to build in the future, they do have the option of relocating the water main to the other side of the boulevard at their cost. So they could come forward with a servicing agreement in the future, should they want to pursue that option. So they do have an ability to construct with a little more costs.
Right. Okay, well, I mean, I had a brief look at the city center discussion around this. I would like to support them to expand their restaurant, but I would hate to see something happen to underground infrastructure and then their new build become a potential not new build anymore.
Yeah, if they want to pursue construction, then relocation of the pipe will be the next.
So to support the community committee here, P&D committee, are we interested in hearing public service recommendations on how we could look at that? Yes?
Sure.
Sure, okay.
I've provided the alternate recommendations to the clerk.
Okay,
I can circulate it if you'd like, councillors.
sure.
These would just be standard conditions we recommend for every closing.
And have we connected with the applicant at all?
We just did clarified what the situation was.
Okay, and did they respond back?
Yeah, they did respond. They understood what that meant.
Okay. So this just came up as closing recommendations. Let me go through. Okay. Do you mind just walking me through here? So I didn't realize 7.
So these are just basically instructions for the public service and how to proceed. So recommendation 1 is approval of the sale and approval of the conditions outlined in Appendix A.
Okay.
So in Appendix A, we do have the easement condition there. That recommendation 2 is to bring forward a closing bylaw, which is required by land titles to actually close the road along with the closing plan. And then 3 and 4 are standard conditions for any development application where we put time limits on the applicant's application that it moves forward. They can always request an extension if need be to both get the approval and the bylaw approval and the registration done. And then 5 and 6 are necessary for the actual sale if it were to be approved, so that we have the authority to enter into an agreement if that approved.
Are they familiar with the sale price of right away?
That's something that's not negotiated in advance of any closing. So once they make an application and it gets approved, then we'll start to negotiate what the price is. Yeah.
Was the intent of the committee an area councillor just to give it to them?
That was, as far as I know, was never discussed and never clear in terms of what that would be. The public service position will be fair market value.
Right. Because interestingly enough, like this particular restaurant has had this patio for quite some time. And it's not like a pop-up patio. It's
No, this is decades and they have some,
permanent.
yeah, they have some fencing in place.
Right.
Yeah, it's
like
been there.
nobody would consider their patio a sidewalk.
The sidewalk goes around it. Most people wouldn't even realize that it's even an encroachment.
Right. Okay. My intention is not to jam them with some unreasonable price for a piece of property that they've been maintaining for decades. But I suppose, is there any way for that to come back to this committee or to city center to negotiate at that point in time?
If we can't come to an agreement, or I guess if we come to agreement at a lower price, it would have to come back to standing committee. If they're amenable to paying fair market value, we do have a little bit of wiggle room within our definition through policy of fair market value that we could do that.
Okay.
I mean, you could ask, I guess, for a verbal report back in 180 days to understand whether we're at loggerheads in terms of the negotiation or not.
Sure. Yeah, we can hear back. Are we interested in hearing back about this, or do we just want to let them figure it out and it'll be what it'll be, unless
Your call, Mr. Chair.
I'm okay with it.
as is with the draft recommendations by the public service? You want to move ahead with that? Committee? Councillor Dobson is nodding yes. Okay, then we will take the draft recommendations and make that the standing policy committee recommendation on this to go up to council. Okay. And that works for the public service as well. Okay. And that's moved by Councillor Dobson. Thank you very much, Councillor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much on that. Appreciate the explanation. Hopefully that works out. Great spot. Item number 14, subdivision rezoning 391, 397, 401 for Lache.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Committee, this is from Riel Community Committee, a subdivision rezoning. A six-story mixed-use building with 45 units and ground floor commercial right on the north side of Provencher, just west of the Belgian Club. It was approved, Public Service supported it. It was approved by committee with some amendments that we're comfortable with. Plan approval is still required as per the secondary plan for North St. Boniface. So we'll go back for plan approval. And the additions to the zoning agreement was a minimum of 5 3-bedroom units. And one of those 3-bedroom units must have 3 wall mounts for bicycles inside the unit. And then an additional 15 outdoor bicycle locked spaces along
You're
Provencher.
gonna tell them what color to paint the walls too?
That was not included.
Oh, okay.
No.
Did you see?
Schmidt did.
And there's also a
He actually had one machine that blue.
car share involved in this project.
There is?
Yeah,
How many?
one car share, yeah. So,
Counselor Wyatt, you taking any issue with the committee mandating a car share here?
no, I think that was
How many units?
45 units. And there is a variance for parking.
One car share?
Yes.
I don't know what the number is. Mr.
Yeah, I don't know either. I can't,
We have to determine. We have to amend the what do you guys call that? The standard, the development standard agreement. Yeah, something.
Yeah, we've been working with the car share Peg City Co-op, and it's going to be part of our zoning bylaw rewrite is more clarity around car share and how it's applied in different parts of the city. So that'll be in the new zoning bylaw.
Oh, really? In the zoning bylaw?
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be by our development stat? Help me out here.
Procedures bylaw?
Pertain negotiated.
The development agreement parameters.
Right. Wouldn't that be the way to do it versus our zoning bylaw?
well, it's often connected to variances for parking. So they'll say, well, we want to reduce the parking by 15, but we'll add a car share.
Oh, I see.
So it is kind of related to the whole variance process,
Okay. I see that. That makes
but we'll get clearer sort of regulation around it.
I don't love the specifics on bedrooms and having bikes hanging and vegetation and native Manitoba. Like, I'm not supportive of that. But, sorry. We hear from developers all the time that they will develop their properties that market dictates. I'm not sure why our committees are getting into.
Which items are you referring to?
So on under A,
Yeah.
there's a laundry list of
Oh, I see them all here.
plans showing the designs and any and all proposed, then list A through G, and then they get into maximum heights of all structures on the land. Like what is public service and what is community committee here?
And these are all new. These weren't in the original report.
Yeah, there were some new conditions added to the zoning agreement
see
regarding
them
the
there.
minimum
8-4,
3-bedroom. Yeah. There is plan approval back to community committee and there's some design guidelines in the North St. Boniface secondary plan. So a lot of these pieces will be looked at within that parameter of the
It's
design.
a good call, Mr. Chair. I would delete page 4 completely.
Okay,
Actually,
I just want to be.
no, you're
cautious.
100% correct.
We
Like, I mean,
have-
I give the counselor credit for trying, but there should be a process for this. Make sure it's consistent across the city. I mean, it's good. He has ideas. Maybe they're good ideas. I don't know.
There
But,
was no opposition to this application. There's
There was not a,
no,
well, why is it here? It should go through the express.
because of these changes that
All right. Oh, thank you, James. Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
So I'm looking and seeing that all the
Well, I'm
changes
glad
come,
it came here.
all the changes come under number 2 of the recommendation.
yes.
It risks that, there's almost like a separate city going on here, that they have different rules compared to the rest of the city. We gotta be consistent. I think that's why we created Unicity in 1972 last time I checked. So, I agree with you. I would be in favor of deleting those if you wish to do that. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it one way or the other, but I'll
I
take
don't know,
it.
what are the thoughts of the public service on this?
Yeah, it was the will of the Riel Community Committee, particularly the area councillor, felt these conditions were important. Public service did not recommend these conditions at the outset. So I guess it's up to this committee to decide if they would like to remove them.
One of the ones that I would put in here that you didn't put, I like these electric charging stations. You know, like there's an example, like, so do I start doing that in my community committee? Like, that's the issue. Do we have it consistent? And if we're gonna make, these are extra costs, right, on a development, so.
And I'm sure a councillor would come forward and say you have made stuff, changes to some of your projects, right?
That's what I've done it consistently, like for example, plan approval, we have to follow the rule of plan approval. I've had plan approvals appealed on me to this committee, and they won. Walmart in particular, we're not happy about that. But
Was the developer able to?
we did take 50% land from sales. We did take that from you.
Yeah, and I could say, like, for the first condition, a minimum 5 3-bedroom units, they were already planning to do that. That was part of their project. They were gonna have 5 3-bedroom units. Regarding landscaping, vegetating native to Manitoba, sometimes that can be a challenge, what landscaping materials are available at the different nurseries. There's a lot of landscaping that is not native to Manitoba that still thrives well in Manitoba. So their landscape architects would probably not specify vegetation that wouldn't survive, because the plan approval requirement means, says you have to maintain it pretty much in perpetuity. So they're not going to plant things that are going to die and that they're going to have to keep maintaining. In terms of the indoor secure bicycle parking, could be a challenge depending on the layout of the building and how they've designed it. The outdoor stalls, not a big challenge. I think that one wouldn't be so negative. Including racks in the 3-bedroom unit, that would be a challenge. Like, how do you go and inspect that and make sure that that was actually done? And many different bikes take different racks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But even the outdoor lockable bicycle parking spaces, some people just prefer to bring their bikes inside and they will not leave them outside regardless. And so I don't know, leaving all of these things up to the developer certainly will allow more market responsiveness as the development occurs. Yeah.
Is this development gonna have balconies?
On the north side, facing the Seine River, will be full balconies. On the south side, they're the Juliet balconies, which is more just a railing with an open.
Ones with balconies, depending on the size, they can put their bicycles there.
Yeah.
That's what typically people do.
And like we mentioned, it will be coming back to Riel for plan approval, and they could discuss these things as part of the plan approval process, but maybe not have them mandated in the zoning agreement.
I've never seen a recommendation requiring the amount of bedrooms. That's a new one. They're all kind of new, but that one kind of threw me. So
you could leave it up to the plan approval process.
yeah, I think that should be left up to the market, quite frankly, what the demand is, right?
So you'd support striking 3 through 7?
1, 2, 3, 4,
1 and 2, I
5.
believe, were public service.
There's 5 of them, I think, yeah.
Councillor 1 and 2. I think,
On
public
page
service.
4, it's pretty clear. They show them in a bullet.
Yeah, they're bold. But 1 and 2 were original public service recommendations in the report.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you're looking to strike 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, I, triple I, IV, V, VI, VII.
Correct. I think you said is right.
Page 7 on the report is
Yes.
the bolded item.
And
And
this
plan
is,
approval is coming back to their community.
Yes,
committee.
yes.
So that's
we
what
can discuss all these.
and he'll try to get people more back in that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any comments there?
No problem.
Any other? Nothing? Okay, then we'll move
This came up in the
the
last council meeting.
recommendation as, I suppose that would just be the public service recommendation.
Yes, so it would read that the recommendation of the Real Community Committee be concurred in with an amendment to recommendation 2A to delete
Thank
clauses
you.
3 to 7.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Our final item on our regular reports here is the secondary plan for amendment. Public markets, lands bounded by Marion Street to the north, CN Rail and Spears Road to the east, CP/CN Railway to the south, and CP Railway to the west. Public service.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this was another application at Real Community Committee, a secondary plan amendment for the public market secondary plan. Public service was supportive and community committee was supportive. They just amended one condition regarding the unobstructed emergency access. We're supportive of that. They heard at the meeting from the chief of the Winnipeg Fire and Paramedic Service. They confirmed with the chief that this minor amendment to the emergency access was suitable for his needs, and he agreed. So we're recommending this move forward.
I'm just typing out something here for you guys to have a look at.
Is it regarding this?
Yeah, this is item 15.
Yes.
Yes. Is there any area charges in this matter with this on the servicing agreement? What kind of area?
Offhand,
What?
I don't know that there is.
Okay. Is there anything in terms of some of the challenges we have in this neighborhood with transportation and the industrial? Was there any kind of issues flagged in through the zoning process?
There was from the adjacent owner, which was Maple Leaf,
Right.
that they came to in delegation and spoke about their concerns of having the proximity of residential to a large hog kill plant.
And a rendering facility.
Yeah.
And what was Maple Leaf's take on this? What was their position?
I don't think they supported the amendment just on the basis they didn't want to see more residential population moving east.
Any issues for the city in that regard?
Zoning land use thing, right? So
What's the take of the department? You were still supportive of them?
Yeah, we were supportive. They submitted an engineer's report on noise and vibration, and it's what the committee said was, you know, they're going from 2,000 units, which is approved now, to another 800. So it's a net new 800 units. The committee felt that, yes, they heard the presentation from Maple Leaf, but the committee felt that net new 800 units wasn't a big increase to increase complaints and to have much of an impact.
3 spoke in support, 3 spoke in opposition during the representations. It does trend toward complete communities with having residential near job centers. And there is buffering that is occurring within both the land uses and within the public space and parks and open space.
And is Maple Leaf an adjacent owner or landowner? Are they like right abutting this property?
No, I believe there is some separation.
yeah, not much separation. I mean, Dawson Road essentially is the separation.
Right.
Sort of the corner of that plant.
Yeah.
Is almost touching the corner of the water tower district.
But yeah, and then the separation is in the secondary plan. There's a significant area of employment lands before you get to the residential, which is within the ring road. The proposed ring road is where the new residential is proposed.
I guess where I'm going with this is,
It's not a button.
yeah, we have a major brownfield to the north, and I guess active industrial to the east. I know when we've run into issues like this in my ward, we've had situations where the industries come back and threaten legal action if we proceeded. They did not do that.
Not as far as I know, Counselor.
Okay.
at least 300 meters away from the residential.
Just 300 meters, and the prevailing winds in the summer are out of the southeast. So actually, it doesn't really blow into this area in the summer. The winter, everybody's got their windows closed. So the issue, though, we have some very major industries in the north, and the prevailing winds are in the winter, but there's some real pollution issues. I'm familiar with from residents who live in this area. They've had the University of Manitoba involved. They've done extensive studies. There's going to be some challenges. But the motion that I wanted just to throw on the table, and it's very high level, but we used to have a vision here of Marion Avenue connecting into La Jamodier. The long-term transport, is that our transportation master plan's present alignment? Do we foresee that?
Is it Marion connecting to Lodge or?
Yeah, so Marion would be realigned so that at the eastern end where it terminates now with La Jamodier would be a secondary kind of probably right in, right out. But it would be realigned to come up at the Dougal La Jamodier intersection. That was our vision for many years. Because the issue here is you got 2,400 units being built. They did a transportation. Sure, the roads can handle it, but the roads are already maxed. We have railway crossings. I know Mr. Axworthy's looking at all that stuff. The underpass here, even though we gave Jan Vandel, when I was chair of finance, $5 million to spend to do the entire study on a grade separation, was a waste of money because when he got elected I went to Parliament and some residents started making noise in opposition with the new councillor. They all ran for the hills. And that was the end of that project. So, at least for now.
I only remember having a brief conversation with transportation about that, and I didn't think the realignment was at that intersection. I think the intention was to potentially Dougal west of Lage would then eventually migrate into the current Marion. So I think the connection point was
then it was changed.
Maybe more Archibald rather than La Jamodier, if you can kind of picture that. Again, this is one conversation for 5 minutes I had months ago, so
okay.
I don't know that exact plan. I know that transportation had looked at some type of realignment there.
I'm just going to fire this to you quickly. Here, have a look at it, Gord. See, I don't want to tax anything here to death in term or to create a scenario that the developer wouldn't find acceptable. I know that it sounds like it's a new developer who just purchased this as well, since this application was made according to the newspaper I read. Did you not see that, or did you see that about a week or two ago? Who purchased this land? And I think he's very much invested in the city, so I'm excited about it. I think it's great. And I think he's, I think he'd be open to something like this because the way I worded it.
Just to highlight it, it's a secondary plan amendment.
Yeah.
That's what this application is, so I'm not sure.
So maybe it's not, I shouldn't have worded it that a development servicing agreement, right? Okay, so I'm just wondering whether he'd be open to a small area charge to allow us to create that vision again at a high level. And I think it might be something to his advantage. I don't know. This is just an exploratory motion to see if he's interested.
Also for the committee, the Public Works reviewed their traffic impact study.
Yeah.
And they did not have any concerns with the traffic impact study and the effect on the new traffic on Marion and La Jamodier.
No, it's if you've got all these new people moving the neighborhood, they're going to want to know how they can get in and out. Marion will be their main access, right? Yeah. So they don't have any access over to Archibald. They rely on Marion and they rely on Dawson. Yeah. So, Gord, would this be, is this something that would kill the agreement?
I think it's a bit late in the game
Yeah.
to begin with an area charge. It's something that should have been discussed at the outset.
So is it something that he could still, on his own, make a recommendation to the?
I suppose they could take that approach. I mean, the realignment of Marion or Dougal.
Without having to pay for a secondary.
But I mean, that would just be an enormous cost of relocating many industrial players in the area. So,
oh no, this is listen, north of Marion, we need a whole, in my view, where reminds me of the east side of downtown Calgary. When they wanted to get rid of their heavy industrial there that they've had, or derelict industrial, they created a TIF zone. They did it over 75 years, right? They are 30 years. They funded it to a tune of $150 million to clean it all up. But we have, for example, we have a massive refinery here, a Shell refinery that just sits there, just totally derelict. It's not operating. It blew up in the 80s. Literally, there was a massive fireball. We have a ton of other industries like that there. The area needs to be clean. You're 5 minutes from downtown. But anyway, that's another story. Okay, I'm beating. So carry on. I was going to talk. Yeah,
Your voice hurts. You just
my voice. And I have that other motion that's very.
And how will you make your singing engagement?
This kind of stuff drives me down because we're seeing it in isolation. When you have an entire area there that we could be leveraging these new tax rules to finance cleaning up an area that's 7 minutes, 8 minutes from downtown Winnipeg and moving these industrial out. And of course, I tried to get a brownfield strategy in the city in my last term and that got nowhere. But anyway, I'll leave these better thoughts up to EPC. They're smarter than me. So carry on, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, my only issue with introducing this at this point in time, the applicant doesn't have a chance to speak to it, or
it
would just be.
I hope he does well. It's a tough one. There's a big pit there full of cows apparently. Eh? Yeah. Anyway, so
okay.
That's what I've heard.
So then, public service recommendation as approved by Riel. We're prepared to move on here.
Yes.
Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. This is a lot of units, so we'll note Councillor Wyatt moves. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you.
No in camera?
No in camera.
Okay. I have an item of new business, please. Yeah.
I'll have a motion to hear new business. Moved by Councillor Dobson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, I think you guys have a copy of it. I sent it around. It's pretty straightforward. Minimal meetings, Madam Director. We just want to kind of have an exploratory discussion. We're not going to pursue this if one of the groups say, no, we're not interested. And if they are, we're just going to write a recommendation to the secondary plan. Thou shalt consider this when the time comes. Secondary plan passes as a possible revenue source for the city. The idea is to help fund, which, I want to thank Gord for helping write the motion. He did a first draft as he was writing the whereas clauses to fund this nature park we're trying to assemble, which we've been receiving a fair bit of pushback from the area, which is kind of ironic because when we started the process, residents told us we want to save trees and animals and deer, but then it kind of changes. If people see the values. So, well, we did sign on to the Montreal Accord for Biodiversity, and I'm trying to live up to that. Right? Council's policy is a tough one. It's a tough one, especially when we don't have any mechanisms for assembling actual lands. So
this is strictly exploratory.
100%. These three groups struggle a fair bit for revenue. So Waterski, Manitoba, actually. Not so much. They do better unless we drain their lake down like we did in 2017 by accident by leaving the pump on. But that was water and waste. That was a different one. But anyway, yeah.
I think we just wanted to ensure that we had political support for talking about potentially selling parkland.
Right.
In hopes of buying more park.
Right. Yeah. Technically, to do a JV here, Mr. Chair, we'd actually probably have to declare that parcel surplus as a park. But in the overall context of what we're doing in South Transcona with regards to the secondary plan in terms of naturalized, hopefully preserved areas, the net increase of park space will be significant. Hopefully, we'll see what happens.
Okay, so on an exploratory basis, then, Councillor Wyatt's motion for consideration here.
I thank Mr. Kelsey as well who assisted on this one. So thank you, Gord.
Moved by Councillor Wyatt, All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried.
Thanks.
Any other new business?
December
at this point in
10th,
time?
the next open house, just so you know, it's gonna be a long one. And all kind of exciting there on. Were you there Thursday? I wasn't there because of my voice. I was there again.
All right. Look at that.
So much better without councilors now.
Ruined the whole thing. Okay, do we have move for consent agenda adjournment?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Dobson. All in favor?
Great.
Opposed? Thank you very much. That is carried. We will see you back here for the December meeting of SBC
It's a December
on
meeting.
property and development. December 4th. Don't be late.